Welcome to OG Benchmarks. This video is going to be a little different and shows a new direction I have. I'd like to focus more on small form factor builds. I'm going to ramble a bit as I take you through my changing interests. A few months ago, a popular tech YouTuber, Tom on Moore's Law is Dead, shared an interview with yet another YouTuber, Josh from NFC, not from Concentrate, during Broken Silicone episode 95. During the interview, the statement, mATX is dead, was made. This struck me as really interesting. At the time of the podcast, I had built two computers. Both were micro ATX. My test bench has an mATX board. How can mATX possibly be dead? Really quickly, what is mATX? mATX is one of many different specifications for motherboards. On the screen are some relative layouts of motherboards. This image shows just sizes, and there are other sizes, both bigger and smaller, besides these. These boards are to scale. For reference, the ITX board is 6.7 inches or 170 millimeters square. The biggest and most common size is ATX, micro ATX, or mATX, sometimes U ATX, and that really should be a Greek letter, mu ATX, is smaller. ITX, or more properly, mini-ITX, is the smallest of the three. All three can be mounted through the same standoffs in a case. So an ATX motherboard needs a bigger case, but an ITX motherboard can be mounted in a larger case. It just looks a bit scrawny. Okay, let me explain why I have chosen to work with mATX. It's all about money. I got into computer building as a hobby, and I didn't want to spend a whole lot of money. Of these three form factors, mATX tends to be the least expensive. mATX has fewer features than a full ATX board. mATX boards also fit into somewhat smaller cases, which are also less featured and less expensive. Full-size ATX boards have more bells and whistles, more fan headers, beefier VRMs, maybe more RAM slots, more M.2 slots to support the bigger hardware in a typical top-end build. ITX boards are smaller. You'd think that would make them less expensive, but they are more of a niche offering and carry a modest price premium. The sales volume is smaller, so the economy of scale works against buyers a bit. Also, you pay extra to fit all the features of an mATX board into the smaller form factor of an ITX board. Regardless, whether I want to admit it or not, I have focused on mATX builds and motherboards because they match my budget. So why would someone say they are dead? Well, in the world of high-end builds, mATX really doesn't serve a purpose. Top builds are about power. That's an ATX build, or possibly about compact size. That's an ITX build. Budget doesn't really have a place. That's really interesting. As I think about it, while I used to be more interested in the idea of gaming when I started building, the fact is I'm not a gamer, not a real one anyway. I have no need for serious performance with a big GPU, lots of cooling, tons of storage, or RGB. Smaller builds are way more appealing to me. Micro ATX is dead? Yeah, it actually kind of is dead, at least dead to me. Something like ITX fits my use case better. mATX has been great for me to learn about building a computer, but now I want to explore another aspect of computer building. Not top-end performance, but compact builds and size efficiency. Of course, small builds, while new to me, are nothing new. Maybe I'm just more sensitive to the subject, but it seems to me that more small builds have been featured on YouTube recently. For full disclosure, I've been sitting on this video for a while, and these video thumbnails are not as recent as the date on the slide might imply. The Toasty Bros had a video on a small build that they bought off of AliExpress. They've actually done a bunch of these in the past few months. This was essentially an ITX build. Linus Tech Tips covered a Dell computer in which the computer actually fits into the monitor stand. This is not a standard form factor like ATX or ITX, but it does show just how small a computer for office productivity can be designed. I need to comment on my slide title. The systems covered in these videos are not really builds. Okay, they're more like pre-builds, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Intel has been putting out NUC computers. NUC is Next Unit of Computing. Reminds me of the Three Stooges. Nyuk, nyuk, nyuk. These are really small form factor computers. Similarly, the Asrock DeskMINI is another small system. It does follow a standard form factor, mini-ITX. STX is a bit smaller than ITX. Although not a Windows system, the Raspberry Pi is maybe the poster child for small computers. This thing is tiny and all sorts of cases are available for it. All these miniature systems are all awesome, but as a person interested in building a computer, I'm not really satisfied by these particular options. The main issue I have is that some of these products rely on embedded CPUs. You can't just go out and find an Intel i3 or i5 and slap it into the socket. These are specialized products that often aren't even intended for the DIY builder. As tiny builds, these products often use customized cooling solutions. Compact builds still generate heat, and removing that heat in a smaller space with less airflow is a challenge. So the CPU can't be swapped out, the CPU cooler is a custom part, the cases may also be specialized, with vents in a position that match the specific CPU or system fans. In short, these very slick tiny builds aren't really for the typical PC enthusiast. So my plan moving forward with this channel is to continue doing benchmarks. Benchmarks of various types, but I want to mix in some ITX building. The ITX form factor is not the smallest option, but it's large enough that you can get a decent range of parts, whether CPUs or coolers or storage or cases, to assemble a system and make it your own. I'd like to explore how the system performs. Which CPU fans are best? How much CPU power can these systems take without throttling? Do these tight cases allow for any airflow? Down the road, I'd also like to see what kind of GPU options might be viable and what kind of gaming is workable. Even down to Minecraft or Roblox or like Steam games. I'm not talking Cyberpunk here. Alright, so I'm going to be mixing in some ITX content on the channel. I hope you found this video interesting and you are looking forward to future videos. Please consider subscribing, liking, or leaving a comment. Take care.